this disease actually is only treatable if you have got ICU beds, if you have got ventilators, if you have got good drugs availability to tie the people over when they get really sick.
Viewer discretion is advised.
It was New Year's Eve 2019 when health officials in China admitted they had a problem. A rapidly growing number of people were developing a dry cough and fever before getting pneumonia. Doctors have named the disease COVID-19, or Coronavirus Disease 2019, indicating that a type of virus is causing the illness. When they tried to trace its origin, they found a likely source: this food market in Wuhan. Out of the first 41 patients, 27 had been here. A lot of the viruses that make us sick actually originate in animals. Some of the viruses that cause the flu come from birds and pigs. HIV/AIDS comes from chimpanzees. The deadly Ebola virus likely originates in bats. And in the case of the 2019 coronavirus, there's some evidence it went from a bat to a pangolin before infecting a human. We need all these hosts to encounter each other at some point. That's where the Wuhan market comes in. It's a wet market, a kind of place where live animals are slaughtered and sold for consumption.
The cages stack about one over another. Animals at the bottom are often soaked with all kinds of liquid, animal excrement, pus, blood, or whatever the liquid they're receiving from the animals above.
That's exactly how a virus can jump from one animal to another. If that animal then comes in contact with or is consumed by a human, the virus could potentially infect them. And if the virus then spreads to other humans, it causes an outbreak, particularly well known because they offer a wide variety of animals, including wildlife.
It was mostly peasant household backyard operation of turtles, for example. That's how wildlife farming started to get off the ground.
And since it started to feed and sustain people, the Chinese government backed it. They enacted the Wildlife Protection Law, which designated the animals as resources owned by the state and protected people engaged in the utilization of wildlife resources. The law also encouraged the domestication and breeding of wildlife. And with that, an industry was born. Small local farms turned into industrial-sized operations. Farmers were also raising a wide variety of animals, which meant more viruses on the farms. While this legal wildlife farming industry started booming, it simultaneously provided cover for an illegal wildlife industry. By 2004, the wildlife farming industry was worth an estimated 100 billion won. By 2018, the wildlife industry had grown to 148 billion won.
Those people who consume these wildlife animals are the rich and the powerful.
Soon after the coronavirus outbreak, the Chinese government shut down thousands of wet markets and temporarily banned wildlife trade again. Organizations around the world have been urging China to make the ban permanent.
Bats have lots of viruses. Very few of these viruses actually make them sick.
Coronaviruses are a type of virus that can spread from animals to humans and cause diseases like SARS and MERS. The latest coronavirus outbreak started in Wuhan, China. Early reports linked the first coronavirus patients to a market in Wuhan where bats might have been sold as food. Based on initial genetic testing and past outbreaks, they say it's likely the coronavirus originated in bats.
Found that the closest relative to the Wuhan virus was a virus from a bat, 96% similar.
Now, Chinese scientists say pangolins could be the middlemen.
Pangolins are the most trafficked animal in the world. They're basically like an armadillo with plates. So they've got these really long scales, and those scales are prized in traditional Chinese medicine.
Identifying the origin can help contain the current outbreak and prevent future ones. New testing has raised doubts about the market's role in the outbreak.
If you cook meat, you're going to destroy viruses like coronaviruses because they're not very heat stable. But either handling the animals or handling the meat or preparing the meat would certainly put you at risk.
Scientists do know that bats and rodents carry a relatively high number of viruses, but bats often don't get sick from them.
If we can figure out why bats don't get sick, we may be able to apply it to reducing the effects of viral infection. We don't have clear-cut answers. We've got a lot of hypotheses.
The reputation of bats is a very high concern.
Despite the animal's potential relationship to the new coronavirus, virologists don't want people to vilify bats, many of which are endangered.
If anything, humans are the problem because we are encroaching on their domain.
Probably a zoonotic jump, that is from a small mammal, likely reared or captured at least for food consumption. The reservoir appears to be a bat under stress, therefore their immune system is down, and then through the handling process, including slaughter, that's when the highest risk of jumping from animal to humans would have occurred.
Suspicion is that in Wuhan, coronavirus crossed to humans from the most trafficked wild animal in the world, the pangolin.
Whatever it was an animal. It jumped from an animal to a person. It's a wild animal that's been taken out of its natural environment, consumed in some way, come into contact with people in an unnatural way. That's the lesson here. We've been trying to warn people that, this is global.
We're walking into the heart of Bangkok's immense Chatuchak market to see how seriously Thailand's authorities are taking the threat that coronavirus has so dramatically exposed. Here in hot, squalid and cramped conditions, wild animals smuggled in from all over the world, and now the pandemic affecting over 80 countries worldwide. Most new diseases infecting mankind are caused by a virus that began in a wild animal and leapt to humans in settings just like this.
Literally thousands of people are here today. It's a perfect storm, really, for the Wuhan thing to happen again right here.
Wildlife markets like this are still operating across Asia. Huddled in their cages and glass boxes are everything from Australian cockatoos, even blue-tongue lizards, to African meerkats, European ferrets, rare tortoises and snakes. These animals are never together in the wild and so are vulnerable to viruses carried by each other. In these terrible conditions, those viruses can pass to the humans who handle them. Next global pandemic could easily begin in one of these cages.
And I hate to say it, but I think the pangolin, in this case, the most heavily trafficked mammal in the world, whose only defense is to curl up into a ball, has decided that conservationists weren't doing enough. It struck back itself. I think this is Mother Nature's revenge.
Now is the time to really pull out all the stops. We have to give it the whole of government approach, give it all you got, throw everything at it, quick and early and hard. That will buy you sufficient time, and if you're extremely lucky, you might even be able to contain it. For every death, you would expect to see 80 to 100 cases. Start seeing deaths before you start picking up large numbers of cases. The only conclusion that one can reasonably and scientifically draw is that you hadn't been testing nearly early enough or extensively enough. Unless you go and test, you're not going to find. Because this disease actually is only treatable if you've got ICU beds, if you've got ventilators, if you've got good drugs availability to tie the people over when they get really sick.